Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
And what is going on, everyone? It is Tuesday night, and you are tuned in for another edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative Editor-in-Chief. To my left, you're right at home. It's in his contract. He does his own intro.
Coming at you live and direct straight from the ODPH studios. My name is Off the Cuff Tom, Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur. Ken, Tom, and Tom. It's a pleasure.
Indeed, because we are very fortunate enough to have a writer on the line that has a book coming out from Dynamite Comics that if you are a classic cartoon enthusiast, the minute you see this team pop up on your screen, you're going to go completely crazy. I know I did. And like I said, from the work that he's done with Buffy and Vampirella, you know it's in very safe hands. Please welcome the writer of Herculoids, TOM SNIEGOSKI. Tom, what is going on?
Thank you for having me. I am taking any opportunity I can to talk about this book.
Chill, man. Chill.
Finally, somebody wants to listen.
Oh, absolutely. Because like we say, the book, when this was first announced at New York Comic Con, like this definitely caught the attention of what's going on. So Tom, let's start off. How did this whole project come to be?
All right. The whole project, this is really kind of funny. The whole project came to be because when Nick started to acquire the Hanna-Barbera stuff for Dynamite with Space Ghost, as soon as I saw that he got Space Ghost, I was like, all right. So I bang an email. I've known Nick for years, so I can do these things. I sent him an email that said, if you do not give me Herculoids when you get the property, I will be so bullshit at you. You cannot imagine. And I got the pleasant email back that said, oh, Tom, we don't got it yet, but we're maybe going to work on it, but I'll be in touch. Honestly, I didn't 100% think that he'd be in touch, but I got an email like a couple months later that just basically said, we got it and you can have it if you want it.
That's
that was like the epiphany. That was like,
that's a sign right there.
The heavens opened up for me because honest to God, I've been chasing this thing for 40 years.
And, just to follow it up, what drew you into the franchise of the Herculoids?
Sitting in front of the freaking television set when I was 5 years old. I mean, I literally remember sitting in front of the TV watching the show and just being completely mesmerized by the look and the ideas and the Alex Toth's designs that just kind of like embedded in my brain. It's just such a fun property. And what's amazing about it is that as I've come up in comics, even like right when I first started in comics doing like black and white stuff that nobody even saw, I would ask editors, who has this license? I would love to do this thing. Who has this license? And you'd be amazed that like the editors would say, I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, the editors like really didn't give a shit. But other creators, like I talked to artists coming up and writers coming up, and every single one of them was like, I don't know, but I loved it. Wouldn't that be great if we did that? Wouldn't that be amazing? And this is from like the 90s when I was first starting out working in comics. Everybody had an opinion about this book or about these characters. And yeah, it took a long time to get here.
But we're here.
Which honest to God, I honestly don't believe that it actually ended up happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just like totally surprised me. I mean, that somebody actually got the license that's willing to do something with it. DC was the last person to have it, and I think the last thing
that would have been Future Quest, I believe.
Future Quest was and that was the first time they actually really did something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it was good. That was Jeff Parker wrote that.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. But that was like the first time that I'd seen them actually do something beyond the concepts that were introduced in like the original cartoon series. So you know, when I saw that, I was like, oh well, at least Jeff's doing it. He's cool. That's great. But then it just went away again.
Yeah, I honestly, I forgot that book came out until you mentioned about Jeff's name in there. Yeah, because I mean, the characters are very unique, and there's a lot of fun stories you can go tell. And I'm surprised that it hasn't had a longer running comics. Just we see about a lot of the classic characters coming in and going, because right now we're pretty much in a renaissance with like Thundercats,
Yep,
Space Ghost,
yep,
and
Silverhawks, and
Silverhawks is coming out this week too.
Yeah.
I mean, to see the Herculoids, I mean, because they've been around since the late 60s, and then even the quick shot
67.
Oh my gosh.
They had TV back then?
It was a big rock that they would project things on. It was amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. But like, so when you're diving into this, like I say, it's just the fact that we haven't had like a real long run of Herculoids in the comics. Yeah. And especially when, compared to like the other books that you've written on, did you ever kind of have to take a step back and like say, okay, I know this is a cartoon, but I have to take this into a different direction? Because I mean, obviously you have the fandom with you, but to really like now give this a look to a whole new generation of fans.
Yeah, the thing is that you always want to stay faithful to what captured everybody's attention and their hearts and their mind, what got them excited. You always want to keep that in mind when you're like designing your initial story arcs and stuff. But I always felt that the show only took the concepts and ideas to one point and just basically kept repeating.
Mm-hmm.
It's, here's the planet Amzot. Here are the alien invaders that come and try to take shit from Amzot.
Yeah.
We fight the aliens that are trying to take shit from Amzot. We defeat them. Repeat. Rinse, repeat. Wash, repeat. It was the same thing over and over again. So I felt that what would please me as a fan of these characters was to let's go beyond that. Let's find out why everybody was coming to the planet and trying to take stuff. Who are the Herculoids? I mean, they don't look like anything else that we see on this planet. I mean, like, what are they? What are they all about? What's going on in the mind of a rock ape? I mean, that was the fun stuff. When I got the gig, Joe Rybant, my editor, was kind of like, all right, give us a rough outline of where you take it for the first year. And that was kind of like, oh shit. So I had to, here I am excited that I got the project, but now I had to sit down and think about where I would take it.
Now that's a great way to jump off, being that you are the super fan yourself of the Herculoids.
Yeah.
Where is it that you would like to go with this? Or did you go back and watch the two different series, like the 60 series and then the reboot back in the 80s? Like there, you got some lanes to maybe stay in, but how far do you want to go?
I mean, again, you want to, there's a certain, it's really tough to even verbalize, but there are certain things that you want to stay true to, because I think that there are a lot of people that they don't want to see it go off the beaten track and become something that's not familiar to them.
Right.
But at the same time, I think I want to I wanted to show people like, okay, here's what you're familiar with right here, but now we keep going. Now that episode that ended here, we're going to keep going with it, and we're going to kind of explain things. We're going to kind of start to define the world, start to define the characters. And I think that one of the big things about that was having Craig Russo come on as the artist, because he's got such an amazing grasp of what Toth was doing with the designs of the world and of the characters, that, I mean, it kind of has almost like a feeling of what the original cartoon show looked like. And I think that that's really going to help people kind of go on the ride that I've got planned for them. So that was my big thing, is that I wanted to like give people more, because I was even as a kid when I was watching the show, my brain would start to go off in different directions. Like, well, why is this, and what is this, and why does that guy look like that, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to expand on the ideas and concepts that were originally introduced in the book. So I hope I do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, from the little we've seen thus far with the Ashcan there, it's definitely steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
And especially like what we've seen too, like with the Hanna-Barbera properties too, and we're seeing now with like such books like Space Ghost, who's David Pepos is absolutely knocking out of the park.
Oh yeah.
Is there any kind of like sacred Bible that you have to follow with the Hanna-Barbera properties, or is there a lot of wiggle room you can do?
I was actually, what was that? Well, I was
making
actually
sure you have the wiggle room.
Yeah. I was actually shocked when I delivered my my first year breakdowns, that the only note I got was on something. I don't want to explain it because it's kind of a reveal later. They said, "Whoa, this thing, why don't you use this thing to reflect that thing?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, I forgot about that. But yeah, we'll use that instead of the name I came up with. We'll just use this." So that was one thing. That was perfectly fine, no problem at all. And then the other one, the ultimate note, and it's like I have this inscribed on my tombstone. It was, "Could you cut down on the carnage?"
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I had a little bit of the violence was a little bit escalated in that. And again, I get it. And I think I don't think I go too far, but I think also Craig is so great at kind of like maybe pulling it back a little bit. You're still getting the idea, but he's pulling it back visually a little bit so it doesn't look grotesque or horrible.
Right.
Well, that's interesting. You're talking about, sometimes a little too much carnage. You have come off of doing like Young Hellboy and Buffy. So you understand how like, big IPs are, and especially with this one being so close to your heart. Where did you, like, were you still a little bit carnage driven from, being in those, or is it just this is what you came up with as a kid?
Yeah, I think I did. There's no way in hell that I sat back and said, "I'm going to make this just like what I watched as a kid." Because I don't think that would benefit anybody because of the fact that it is so limited in terms of where the story went. So I think where I want to take it, the violence needed to be upped a little bit, but not to the point where it's like, "Oh, that's like, I can't look at that. This is an R-rated book." No, this would be strict. This would be PG-13 without batting an eye. But I think it needed to be there. I think that's the next. I think that was always like the logical next step. Is kind of where I'm taking it.
Yeah. No, I mean it makes sense too, because especially to try telling a story that when it came out in the late 60s, to try telling it now, it's always good to kind of give it the refresh and not take it too far to the extreme, because then, like you touched upon, that would disconnect the audience completely. Like these are classic. Go ahead.
And you have the fact that there are going to be people who are hopefully coming into this book who don't know any of that stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's something to keep in mind too. I mean, if you kept it locked in that 1967, 1979 mode, I don't think it's going to appeal to an audience that's looking for certain things in comics these days. So
now, speaking of, what is it for you to have to translate the Herculoids from the small screen to the paneled page? Like as a writer, did you have to take those moments into consideration about, oh, well, this is a whole action scene that it takes 3 seconds on the, cartoon, but we have to explain it, panel by panel?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is this is where working with Craig in the past has come into play. I mean, I know what he's capable of. So if I say to him, "This is a really cool thing where Egu takes a rock and smashes a bunch of robots in the head with it," he's going to take that and do like 3 or 4 pages or 3 or 4 panels anyways of Egu being cool looking and smashing things with a rock. So yeah, that you always want to keep, since it's a comic and it's static, you always want to keep that visual exciting, that panel to panel movement. So yeah, so that's I'm very aware of that when I'm scripting, because again, you've got these amazing creatures that do cool destructive things. So you don't want just like one panel of Zoc blasting something and then you go off and do something else. You want to kind of spread it out a little bit and show how cool and destructive they could be.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, because you want to go exemplify like what made you a fan as a kid, and that's what they did. I mean, for that time period, yeah, it's like they, I want to say violent because that's not the right word.
No, it really isn't. No,
But it was action packed.
Yeah,
Like for what you had. So you want to translate that to the audience now, which I think is so crucial to do. And especially when you talk about, you worked with Craig in the past, when you talked to him about this series, like what was the initial reaction from him about this?
It was funny because I wasn't aware of it. He's a huge Herculoids fan.
Oh, wow.
So so when Joe Ryban, my editor, said, so what are you thinking of our artists? And I was like throwing things around, and I thought of Craig, and I'm like, you know what? Craig really has that kind of simplicity but at the same time, tells a lot more than simplicity. There's just something really cool about it. Why don't I ask him? I don't know. He's busy because he's doing another project with me on a book for paper cuts.
Okay.
So I was like, I don't know if he's got the time. So I was like, hey, Craig, I'm doing Herculoids. Any interest? Can you squeeze it? And the response I got was like, what do you mean? I got to do it more. So he immediately started sending sketches. And so he was very interested very quickly, which pleased the hell out of me because I know what I'm getting with him.
Yeah.
I know what he's capable of. And I think he's going to give Herculoids fan this really strong visual punch
because especially when you have the synergy with an artist like that you can really play around in the sandbox here and really say like, you're both big fans. So you can definitely capture that moment, like that energy when you were kids, and really take it here to the pages and really translate that. Because I think if there wasn't that synergy there between you two, it might be lost in translation a little bit. But it seems like from what we've seen thus far, it's like right on point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he was doing those pages like not relatively quickly. He wasn't like rushed or anything, but he was eager to jump into that first script. And yeah, I think he knocked that out of the park. I mean, I look at those and I get that almost like that flash of nostalgia, like sit in front of that television set with the donut and the chocolate milk. It's super exciting to see.
So speaking of the nostalgia, when you did pick this up and, had your, oh my God moment, did you go back and watch the whole classic series and the 80 series? And then since you mentioned that, you were given a note of, hey, let's rework this. Did you find any old loose threads in some of the old episodes that were going to get pulled now in the book?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think even the initial concept of the series itself leaves all these questions like, who are the Herculoids? Who are they? Why are they there? What's that all about? That was where I kind of started, like right off the bat when they asked me to come up with my year plan. It was kind of like, all right, two things. Why is Amzot so desired? Why do people want that planet so badly? And what is it all about? Why are these characters defending this world? Who are they? I mean, do they even know who they are? So basically what I've done is the first two issues kind of introduces the whole concept of, it's almost like what the original cartoons did with like the invaders coming to the planet to take stuff. It kind of like does that. But at the same time, it's the catalyst for a bigger story that goes through the next, 10 issues. You kind of, it kind of like triggers something that's going to be reflected in the next 10 issues.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It was really fun to kind of come up with. I mean, I was having a ball, which.
Well, especially, growing up as a fan, and now you get to work on one of your favorite properties, like your favorite cartoons. Like this is a dream come true job, and especially, and especially to translate it to New Era. Is there anything from a character that when you finally got the gig and you're ready to go, you're like, I want to kind of play around with their abilities, or I want to take it into a different direction than what fans might already know?
Well,
if you can spoil it without spoiling.
This isn't really a spoiler, but. One of the things I did, which everybody kind of went, "What? Yeah, I guess you could do that," was I made Zoc the laser dragon a female.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, my editor was like, "Wait a minute, did we ever see that this was a male before?" And I'm like, "I don't think so. I don't actually remember that, but I don't think most people would remember it." But I wanted to make the character female because, for one thing, it's all males other than one female character. So I figured, I mean, the sausage party, can only go so far. And I wanted there was an idea that I wanted to play with, that making the dragon a female would allow me to do this really kind of cool story for issue 4. So yeah, that was great. That was the big thing. So what I want to do is, I'm not sure where it falls, but I want to do a focus on each of the creatures.
Thank you. He already answered my next question.
Like an issue that kind of like gives you a little bit of something that you didn't quite know about these creature characters, because I figure them not as animals at all. There's a lot more intelligence there than animals, so I kind of want to give them a little bit of more background, a little bit more depth.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculously fun. I just finished writing issue 4, which is the Zoc issue, and that was, I mean, I loved writing the first 3. The 4th issue was really, really exciting to do, because I felt like I was doing stuff that nobody's seen yet. So that hopefully, I haven't got any notes, so I must.
That's always a good sign.
Yeah, I must have done a good job.
Especially too, to give those characters depth, because like I say, if you've ever seen those characters on screen, it's like you have enough that but to really get those extra layers of character to them, and really show faults and really show depth to them, like you touched upon, like that is so key, especially to translate to a new audience, because you don't want them so one-dimensional.
Yes.
That the worst thing that you could have is somebody goes, "Oh, I've seen this before," and then walk.
Yes.
So to present it, especially a classic team like this, and really go deep diving and really push the characters into new directions. Yeah. I think that's something that's so exciting as a reader to see.
Yeah, and that's always something as a writer of these characters like Vampirella or Hellboy. So there's always something that you're focused on, that you want to give the reader not what they've read 150 times before. You want to give them something that makes them look at the character a little bit differently, or look at the character's world a little bit differently. It's so funny when I got the gig and was so excited, and I kind of remember sitting down at my desk and I was like, what am I gonna? And then all of a sudden I remember saying to my writing partner, Janine Atchison, I said, "Oh shit, these characters don't talk." and it was like light dawns on Marblehead. I was kind of like, "Oh my god, how am I going to do this? How am I going to convey emotion and meaning of the story without them speaking with each other?" So she kind of calmed me down and said, "You know what? You've got this. You love these things. You'll do fine. Don't worry about it." And I sat down and I kind of ran it through the noggin and kind of was like, all right, I can approach it this way. So and I kind of broke the logjam a little bit and allowed me to kind of figure out how I was going to do the other stories too.
Now, since you said that Zoc is really getting her big issue in 4, one big thing I've always noticed is Gleep and Gloop are very much the same side of the same coin.
Yeah.
How is it that you're going to do, as best as you can say without spoiling, differentiate the two characters?
Yeah, they are tough because of the fact the only thing that really differentiate them is size.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's really it. So I'm trying, in the first couple of issues, I'm trying to like show maybe a more childlike aspect to Gleep, the smaller of the two. So like Gleep kind of hangs with Dorno, the boy, a lot. So that's what I'm kind of leaning towards, where I'm kind of going to. But like their issue, and I'm not sure I get to their issue in the first year, that was going to be hard because I haven't quite put my finger on what I want to do. The next one is Egu, the rock ape.
Oh yeah.
I'm so excited to write the Egu solo story. I can't begin to tell you. That's my favorite character. So that's the one that I'm like chomping at the bit to get to that one.
Now for me, it's Tundro.
Tundra's great. Tundra
Tundra.
is one of the, I think Tundra is one of those characters that he looks cool, but even in the show, they really haven't done a hell of a lot.
No, he just has like the one trick to him.
Yeah.
Armor plating and shooting.
Well, okay, armor plating.
Walking tank.
But I'm with you with Egu. Like that was always my favorite. Like when watching them.
Fair enough.
No, but like I say, but
there's design. I mean, all of the designs are fantastic.
Absolutely.
Egu's design for some reason, just as even a small kid, just captivated me. I just was focused on.
I think for me, what really hit for Egu, what made him so different compared to the other ones, is that he was always drawn so dark with the extra tones on top of him. That's what drew your eyes. That's why
that could definitely be it. Yeah, definitely. That whole almost like a Mignola influence with the blacks and
exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I mean, I know you got a couple of variant covers for that first issue, and you talked about the Mignola cover there. Like how when you started seeing these covers come in for the variants, was it like just what you pictured the artist, like when you were connecting with them, to see like their reaction to the franchise?
Well, I never knew what I was going to get. I mean, I didn't know the cover that Mike did. I specifically said to him, I called him and I said, "Guess what book I'm writing?" And he said, he was like, "What?" And I'm like, "The Herculoids." And there was a pause and he was like, "I guess I'm going to have to do a cover for that." So I was like, "Yeah, it was." And he knocked it out of the park. I love what he did with that.
Yeah, all the variant covers look absolutely.
Oh, they're all great.
But I said Mike's just jumps out at me. It just has that classic feel that only he can do. And then to see it now with this, like I say, when the book comes out, and we have to just remind our audience here, February 19th, it'll be hitting the comic shop. So you definitely want to make sure you have it locked in your pull list, because you don't want to miss it when it comes out first day. Trust me, it's going to be one of, I think a lot of fans are going to be talking about. And especially like when it ties into what has been going on with the other, properties that we've seen with Dynamite too, especially. I know you said that you plotted out for at least a year.
Yeah.
But in this mix, is there any plans for crossovers? And I know, Tom, you had one, especially you had mentioned.
Yeah, Space Ghost, because we love our buddy David Pepos, and I know that the Herculoids did crossover with Space Ghost in the Molten Monsters of Moltar. So, we did our homework.
Yeah,
you did, because I could barely remember that, but yeah, you did.
So, and aside from Future Quest, are there any plans on there being a shared Hanna-Barbera Dynamite universe?
David and I have talked multiple times, and both of us have said we want to do this.
Dave,
so it's totally up to Dynamite. If Dynamite comes to us and says we want to do it, we'll do it without any problem at all. So yeah, I've talked to David. David's talked to me. Yeah, we're both really excited.
Can we get in that chat?
We need to make that happen, folks.
I hope so. I mean, because I saw him at a party in San Diego, and he came up to me and he was like, "What do you think? Space Ghost Herculoids? What do you think?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm all over that." Yeah, that's a stupid question. Yeah, sure.
And then talking of the characters, and one thing that did develop between the original series and the reboot series in the 80s is that Dorno in the original series, spoke to Xandor and Tara as Xandor and Tara. Yes. But in the 80s series, it was mother and father. And I can probably guess why. But how are you going to address this? Are you going to, how much of the 80s series are you going to acknowledge? Or are we going straight classic Herculoids and going back to Xandor and Tara?
I do a little bit of both. I do definitely do the Xandor Tara thing, because I just think that's kind of cool. There's something about it that's neat that he doesn't refer to them as mom and dad. So I play with that a little bit. But where it kind of is easy to slide in as mother or father, I'll slide that in too. But yeah, I kind of prefer the Tara Xandor thing. So I do with that. I play with that. Same with the planet's name. because it became Quasar in the. I basically what I said in the first issue was that the planet's been known by many names.
Easy one.
Yeah,
I got
many names, and basically what it all means is paradise.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what everybody wants. That's why they
I was
want.
going to say that's a great way to let the audience interpret it and run.
Everybody wants it.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where the whole, coming to the planet to take what the resources and whatever. Yeah.
So I know we kind of touched upon this a little bit about the characters that don't speak, but would you say there's one character especially that's harder to write than anybody?
Probably Gloop and Gleep are the hardest. I mean, again, I'm having a good time with them, but they seem to be at one point they're kind of like, what are they doing? And at another point they seem to be way more intelligent. They seem to be even more intelligent than the other characters for some weird reason the vibe that I'm getting from them. But like, because they always stay around the humans. They're always with either Xander or Tara or Dorno. So they seem to be like almost like even more focused on protecting them than the other one. The other ones seem to be more operatic. They're more bombastic in their approach to everything, whereas Gloop and Gleep just seem to kind of like be like the shield around them almost. Yeah, it's really kind of funny that when I sit down to write the new script, I'm always kind of like picking and examining and thinking about different angles and stuff that you could take with them. But those two are the harder of, I think, out of all of them. Those are the two that have challenged me.
Now I'm gonna reword this and put a little crowbar here, and separate. All right, who is your favorite one of the humans to write, and then who is your favorite creature to write?
Xander, I like Xander because he just seems to be take the bull by the horns. This is our mission. This is we have to protect this planet no matter what, because this is what we do. So just the bravado of the character, like the passion of the character, is kind of neat because it's kind of pass it on to Dorno and to Tara. There's actually a really interesting scene in the first story arc, the first 2-issue story arc, where Dorno ends up, like in the cartoons, he always ends up getting captured, and Xander's like, we have to go, we have to do, we got. And Tara basically says, you know what? He's getting older. Why don't just let him do what he's got to do?
He's got to learn.
Yeah, sit back. I think he's capable. I think just let him do his thing. And that was really fun to write because it was kind of like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool angle because he's getting to be the equivalent. He's getting to be an adult. He's eventually going to get there, and let him learn. Let him let's see what he can do.
And as far as the creatures now, I know we've got our thing going for Zoc right now.
Yeah, so, Ego.
Okay.
Ego is my thing. Yeah.
I can't argue with about that.
There's just something about that design, Alex Toth's design on that creature that just from like the first time I ever saw it.
Yeah, because just when you even on the little panel that we have up on the screen, he just commands the attention.
Yeah,
and it is something about it, like, I just think it's just the tones that's used for him. It's just, it really jumps out at you, and then maybe it's kind of like when he's in there, it's like that's when like things are really
it's go time.
Yeah, like it's
he's the like almost like the catalyst for big bombastic action. That's coming. He's like the beginning of the he's gonna throw the rock. He's gonna smash something with the tree stump. I mean
he's the heavy hitter of the group. So when he shows up, like it's now or never, and then boom, the action kicks in, and that's when
I actually show in issue 3 that Ego has a sense of humor, and I don't want to go any further than that. But there's actually a little bit of sense of humor there.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can't wait to read that. I can't read the whole first issue. Like I said, this one is definitely gonna be on my list when it comes out on February 19th. We just can't emphasize that enough for this. Now, obviously, this has been one of your dream projects to do. Is there any other cartoon series that you would like to work on, like Powers of Be allows it? You know, it's just it
I would love. There's two of them, and I've already sprinkled it into Dynamite. No one responds to me at Dynamite. I'm probably a pest, so they probably don't. They just ignore me. The Mighty Mightor.
Oh,
Caveman superhero. Come on,
Yep.
you can't get better than that.
Yeah.
That writes itself.
that's another Hanna-Barbera property.
That's another Hanna-Barbera and Frankenstein Jr.
Again,
Really?
yeah.
Frankenstein Jr. would just be really fun because I could kind of maybe tap into my YA background because I wrote Bone with Jeff Smith and stuff like that. So that would give me a little bit of wiggle room to kind of play with a slightly younger approach to it, maybe. Yeah, those two things I would die. I would love to do those.
Now, having a career that goes between, doing the YA books and comic books, where do you come from? Where's your mindset when you are going to sit down and say, okay, I'm writing Buffy or I'm writing a young adult versus, hey, I'm writing a cartoon? Like, where do you have to get centered at before you start writing?
It's almost like you have to sit down and prepare yourself for the world that you're going to immerse yourself in. Like I find like the world of books, which I've written a ton of books, but I've also written a ton of comics. I find that there's almost like a mindset. All right, what's today? Well, today is novel day. All right, and you kind of like immerse yourself into the like. I find like novel writing is much more singular. It's much more just me locked in my. Even though I do write with a partner, I do a lot of a lot of the book stuff that I'm doing now. I'm writing with my partner Janine Atchison. I find with her, she's learning the ropes on a lot of the stuff because she's relatively new to comics and to books. So I find like I have to kind of put on the teacher hat a little bit. So I can't lose myself in my head, which is what with book stuff, that's what I normally do. I just kind of sit down, I put a movie soundtrack into the onto the iPod and just kind of go from there. But with writing with her, like book stuff, like we've got two like novella stuff things coming out through a publisher named Bad Hand Books. We're doing a new series called Nera, which is a urban fantasy type series, and we're actually doing new. I did a book with Mike Mignola in 2017 called Grim Death and Bill the Electrocuted Criminal. We're doing new Grim Death stories. Grim Death was always going to be kind of like a pulp character like the Shadow and the Spider and Doc Savage, and the original publisher really didn't do a hell of a lot with it. But we've got a new publisher now, and we're going to be doing new Grim Death novellas. So I am having to kind of like put the line down the middle and go comics, books.
So novel writing day is the curtains are closed, the blinds are shut, and we're sitting over the.
Yeah, there's a lot more. Honestly, usually there's a lot more. But when I'm working with her, because I have to kind of like show the ropes a lot of it. She's still learning a lot of this stuff, so there's a lot more like talking out loud and talking about motivations and what do we want to do with this scene, blah blah blah. Whereas comics seems to be way more like freewheeling. There's like craziness to comics is fun, and that's always been the case with my writing careers. I always found the comic stuff was more loose, more because at the same time, and not to say that one is more powerful than the other.
No.
But the artist is taking up a lot of what you're doing as a writer. The artist is interpreting your words. So if you say he picks up a big rock and throws it at the plane and destroys the plane, it's the artist that's going to take that and make that really come to life visually. Because it's that visual angle, especially in comics, that's so important to comic book storytelling. Is that the visuals have to be as strong as the writing. So the comics, I always felt that there was just more almost like a playhouse type thing. Everybody's kind of playing in the sandbox, whereas writing a book, or a novella or whatever, you're much more internal. You're much more like, all right, I have to make everything work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anybody else to fall back on to kind of bring my vision to life. I have to do it through my words or our words or whatever. Yeah.
And especially too, like you touched on, like having that synergy with your creative team, because with the comics medium, you both have different visions when you read the script and when it comes out, and just to make sure it's on the same point, because if it's not, then it won't connect to the audience.
Believe me, I've had some experiences where things did not connect, and it is not a pretty experience.
I can only imagine, because
it is not good.
Because you really have like that. It's almost like that one shot to nail it, because if you don't, it can throw everything off. And then just especially when readers are picking up so much now, and there's so much out there on the shelves, like you really have to make sure it's such a fine-tuned process.
It is.
It's so funny. There's a my vision with comics. It's my vision, or mine and Janine's vision, and whoever the artist's vision, and those two things have to kind of come together to create the team vision.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those two things kind of don't quite connect right.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that you like to put some tunes on while you're trying to write. What is Tom's playlist when he's writing for novels, and what is Tom's playlist when he's writing comics?
That the novel stuff I'm a little more, it's a little more focused, it's a little more deep. Movie soundtracks are like my bread and butter. I've got thousands of movie soundtracks. So what a lot of the times I'll do is, because I have such a hard time picking out of all the stuff that I have, I'll just take the iPod and I'll put it on shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have like a specific like a random playlist of just cool soundtrack stuff that I love, like Hans Zimmer and John Williams, and like all the ones that you would expect to have on there. That's the thing. That's the ticket with novel writing. It's just that cool immersive experience of like, kind of like, oh, I like that part. That was a cool action scene.
And then it interprets into the book. Now, what about when you're writing comics? What are we listening to then?
A lot of the, depending on it, like if Janine and I are working on comics, I don't want anything, because it's just going to interrupt the flow, the dynamic of the two of us going back and forth. So so I don't have any. We don't have anything when even with books, we don't have anything when we're working together on stuff, because we're yattering back and forth.
Yeah, back and forth.
Yeah, you got to be each other's sounding board.
Yeah. So when I'm solo, we'll have the music, we'll have the soundtracks and stuff like that. But when I'm working with her on stuff, I need to be kind of like guiding the ship.
Yeah, no, and that's completely fair, because let's say, especially when you're working with a team, you really have to make sure everybody's holding each other accountable, and you can't have you can't go off in like one direction, and you have to make sure everybody is like literally seeing the same thing when you're putting pen to paper, because that is just so imperative to hit with an audience.
Yeah,
because it's just the end result is you want to get that wow factor from a reader wherever they're at, like whether it's comics, whether it's a book. You want to have that minute that when they get done, they're like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I want the next one. Where's issue 2? Yeah.
Plus, I don't think I could listen to One Direction while trying to write, because it's just still.
No, that would be too distracting.
So you were talking about, the resurgence of characters, talking about like the Shadow and whatnot.
Yeah, I love that.
And then obviously the Herculoids itself is a classic franchise. What do you think is the big appeal right now for a lot of these types of, IPs coming back to the mainstream?
I think it's pure nostalgia. I think it's people just wanting that piece of the time that they felt calm and like, oh, I was so happy then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a turbulent time that I think that little sliver of remembrance of a time when you were like super excited to put the TV on and sit in front of something for a half hour or 45 minutes or whatever, and just kind of lose yourself. I think that's the draw. I think I've always felt that comics provide that.
Yes.
Comics have always been my escape. They've always been like, oh boy, am I depressed. Where's Alan Moore's Swamp Thing? I need a minute. I need to soak this up, because that was the most exciting as far as like me and comic. That was like the moment for me with comics was Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing. That was like the first time that I was like, wait a minute, you can do this with comics. Believe me, I was totally excited with, John Buscema on the Avengers and Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith and Conan. I was totally immersed in all that, and I loved all that. But Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run, for some reason, was the epiphany. That was kind of like, wait, this is so amazing. I can do that with comics. That was like the beginning that made me decide that I'd like to maybe go in this direction someday.
That's incredible.
Okay.
Well, because you think about it with a character like that and where Alan took it.
Oh my God, he took it. He took it to the point where it was almost like, I remember being like breathless. I was on the bus. I was reading Anatomy Lesson, which I think was his second issue. He had like kind of like an introductory issue, and then Anatomy Lesson began like his run. And I remember sitting on the bus. I was riding on the bus from Boston to Lynn, where I grew up. And I remember reading it and getting to the end of that first issue, and I was like breathless. I was like, I can't believe what I just read. And I read it again.
Yeah.
I read it again. I think I read that issue like 3 times on the bus ride, not believing what I was seeing, because I'd never really experienced it before. It was a totally different experience than what I'd experienced with other comics. That was the one that just kind of like shook me.
And that's always the beauty of comics too, because especially when creators take a hold of characters and really push them into new territory, like not so far that you disconnect from what they are, but you really go some places. And I think for like fans, it's always exciting when you see something like that. And that's always like that, like say, that's what makes fans, instantly become like lifelong readers, because we're always looking for that moment that when you go to the shops and you pick something up and you're immediately like telling your friends like, oh my God, like, did you just read this? Like, you need to read this. Like, I know Tom and I have gone back and forth many nights after a show on a Wednesday and been like, did you read this issue? Like, okay, we need to talk.
Yeah, we did it with actually one of the reviews coming out tomorrow.
Yes, actually.
From Dynamite.
Yeah. What was it? Can you tell me what it was? What was it?
We can say
off the air, but we can tell you what book it is.
Yeah, we could say the book because it's in our first.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want to know the book.
Silverhawks.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Silverhawks definitely will be one I think fans are going to talk about in a very, very good way tomorrow.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
And especially like that was something I grew up with and remember the cartoons and had the toys, and then to see this now come here. And then obviously going in like the deep dives for the old Hanna-Barbera style, because like I always say, that time period to me is just classic and timeless. And I think still holds up with the themes to a degree.
Yeah.
Because essentially when you're looking for cartoons like that, it's good versus evil. There's a reason behind it. It makes sense. And no matter what time period you're in, it will still connect with a reader.
It's a golden age. It is timeless in and of itself.
Yeah.
And
like I say, you can definitely go places now with characters like that, but as long as the theme of that is never taken away, like you don't have somebody that goes completely, from being, we'll just say Clark Kent to Frank Castle. Like, when you go like an extreme
heel turn.
Well, like you could do a heel turn per se, but not like a permanent.
Sorry, I was just doing the wrestling.
Yeah, I know you're trying to learn pro wrestling, which I applaud him.
No,
but in that sense, though, if you but you can definitely add layers to a character, but as long as you keep it, connected to the core and the essence.
And that was my goal with the Herculoids. Is that I want to keep it familiar enough that people recognize it for what it was and appreciate it for what it was. But I want to take it to the next level. Make people go, oh, I always wondered about that. I always wondered beyond this point.
The thing that's sticking in my head is is a rounding wholesomeness to the character. That's what we're trying to build. You're just trying. You're like a boll weevil. Just keep rolling and rolling till you get it just right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I got it just right.
I think so. I think definitely from what we've seen thus far, and readers, listeners, viewers, wherever you're catching this episode from, because it's going to be on YouTube, obviously, and it's going to be in podcast form on Wednesday morning, dropping on the ODPH network. This is a book that definitely captures that essence. And when you think about what we've been seeing now with books like Thundercats, like Space Ghost, and taking it to those characters that that might be brand new to a new audience, to a younger audience here, they still hold up to this day. And I think what this book is going to be doing with Herculoids is you're going to have a different take on characters that definitely stand out on the shelf, but they're going to have something with it that you haven't seen before, that you can connect as a reader, that you didn't have, unfortunately, have the pleasure of watching on Saturday morning or after school, but you're going to connect with them when you pick this book up on February 19th.
Yeah, mine was before school on what would have been like my UPN, now WB network. So it was WPHL 57 Philadelphia, because, you know, I'm weird to remember that kind of stuff. But that's where a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff, you know, used to show on.
Mm-hmm.
So one more. All right. Now, Dynamite has been picking up all these great franchises. And now we're going to talk outside of the Hanna-Barbera sandbox.
Okay.
If the Herculoids could team up with any other Dynamite franchise, preferably an IP, which one would it be?
Oh my God. Man, because my brain keeps going to the other like cartoon stuff, like Mighty Mightor, and
that's why it's outside of the Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, I don't. Oh
we
man,
see them cross over with like the Gargoyles, or, you know, some of the Disney characters.
Maybe maybe even Silverhawk, since it's kind of a sci-fi.
Have them, you know.
I could see some
Hawkhaven.
I could see something like that happening. To be honest.
Yeah, like further off in the galaxy or something. You know that. Yeah,
have Tallyhawk swing by and you know, just pick up and flirt with the Zork.
Or, you know what I'd like to say, if you really want to go outside the box there, you could always think like the Green Lantern Corps.
There you go.
That would be fun.
That I think would be something really.
That would be interesting, because again, that whole alien thing really adds a freedom to the type of story you can tell. But yeah, Green Lantern Corps would be really cool.
Yeah,
I think that'd be awesome. Yeah, I gotta agree. This is why we have a Ken.
Yeah.
maybe you have like Egu getting the ring.
That would be, somebody has to get the ring, and Egu, I think that would be perfect.
That would be amazing.
Ego would be a Green Lantern. Gleep and Gloop, believe it or not, I think would be Blues.
All right, because I thought you were going to say red for a second. I'm like, no way.
No, blue. I think blue too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, there's many ways to go with this, and that's why I say, like, this is why we're telling everybody February 19th at the comic shops. Make sure you go pick up Herculoids. You definitely want to talk about this online with everybody. Really get the word out about this book. Tom, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We definitely have to talk to you after a few issues come out and recap about what we've been seeing here.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Yeah, I'm hoping for year 2. I mean, the brain has already been starting to like go into like, all right, where would I go from here? So yeah, so hopefully.
Yeah, we definitely need that. I know we had one last chime in for a crossover. About CrossFit.
Get over it.
Which one? Come on.
No, we had the Masters of the Universe, because there's been a big push for Battle Cat to somehow cross over with the.
I could see it.
I could see it too. Like I say, it's one of the things that, like I say, when people start seeing this book and they're really going to start diving into the Hanna-Barbera universe, there's a way to really branch out and then say the multiple crossovers are important, but honestly, it all boils down to everybody going out and buying this book when it drops on February 19th.
Please.
That sends the biggest message to Dynamite that we want to see more of this, and we want to see more crossovers.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, let me have Mighty Mightor and Frankenstein Jr. too.
Yes. Put them all together for an annual. I'm down for it.
Oh, that would be something. That'd be a challenge, but I'd be up for it.
Yes, we definitely need to see it. Tom, thank you again for that. Tom, on behalf of our team here at Nerd Initiative, we're going to end it like we always do on Turn a Page. When you're at the comic shops, especially on February 19th, and you have a great issue in your hand, such as Herculoids #1 from Dynamite Comics, and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand yours off to them. Tell them turn a page. We'll see you next week.
I'm out.